Let me introduce myself. I'm software engineer in Software Mansion. We are a Krakow-based company developing apps for startups and enterprises. We are also deeply involved into development of React Native and well-known React Native Expo framework, which will be introduced during my friend talk at 2 p.m., so feel free to come. What's more, in Software Mansion, we are also releasing some open source libraries, and during this talk, I will talk about 2 of them. What's more, I'm also a computer science student. I'm extremely proud to be one of members and one of the leaders of BIT Scientific Group, which works in my faculty at AGH University of Science and Technology in Krakow. So, maybe it's enough about myself. During my talk, I intend to split everything into 4 parts, I'd like to say, which appears to be quite complementary. So firstly, I want to say a few words about React Native in general. I don't want to learn you how to code in React Native. I just want to tell some main points of this language, cover some pros and cons. And after this small introduction, I want to fall into the gesture topic. But before talking about gesture in React Native, which will be the main part of the talk, I want to delve into native gesture ecosystem. So basically on my experience, about gesture and ecosystem native implementation. So basically on my experience from native platform, I want to then move to React Native again and say about gesture ecosystem in React Native. And finally, I want to come back to Android again and try to face and propose solution for some problem I have faced, and it will be the last part of my talk. So let me start from React Native in general. Why is it so magical? So, as you probably know, there are 2 main approaches for building mobile application. The first is making them, as always, in native code like Java, Objective-C, Swift, Kotlin, etc., which is the most obvious method and does not require any introduction for us. But there's also another method, less popular, however it grows popularity last time, using languages we are not supported natively, but using some tools it's possible to run non-native code, which may have some advantages for developers, like increasing speed of writing code or making code base cross-platform. And one of these languages is JavaScript, and React Native is the tool which makes it possible to run JavaScript on both Android and iOS devices. But let's start from some background. To understand fully, we need to be conscious that it wouldn't be any React Native if it hadn't been React before. React is a fancy Facebook library for building user interfaces. And it have all started in 2013 when Facebook released the first version of React library. Sometimes it's being called a framework, but sometimes it's called library, but it doesn't matter, let's don't focus on it. And since the very beginning it has become extremely popular and maybe a bit revolutionary in JavaScript world. It was an answer for limitation of plain JavaScript and need for making more complex web applications. Since frontend is no longer only a matter of displaying things, and it is usually connected with making very complex, very big frontend application, there was call for making something which could be more scalable, and React allows for manage and interact with a lot of data and to be scalable as well. Maybe it's something which could be which could allow developers to design a website on a little bit higher level. So some main features and main characteristic of React. Since frontend is no longer just a matter of displaying things, React makes it painless to create interactive user interfaces. It allows to design simple views for each state in your application, and React will efficiently update and render just the right component when the data changes. So while developing in React, you just not care about how to refresh component, how to provide new data to component. You just declare data. You just say what should be displayed, and it's being displayed. And it is very new things in front end. and it is what React does. And what's more, declarative views make your code more predictable and easier to debug. The next great thing which React allows it's encapsulation. Let you look at this code, and you may see, if you are not familiar with JavaScript, you may understand what's going on here. It's readable even if you don't know JavaScript, and it allows for building components for encapsulating logic, builder and React and so-called JSX syntax allows to build encapsulated components and manage their own state. Then compose them to make complex web interfaces, which makes code very simple and nice to read or extend if you wish. Since component logic is written in JavaScript instead of old HTML templates, so do not think it's HTML, it's not HTML, it's JavaScript, Ionic maybe looks like. You can easily pass rich data through application and keep the state of components. So it's writing code in React is very easy. Code in React is very clear, and it's very nice to maintain. And maybe it will be enough about React. So let you take a look now. You may see that it's still React, it's still JavaScript, it's still quite similar to the previous page, but it's no longer React, it's no longer a website, it's a mobile application. It's only that what has changed. It's some imports. As you can see, we are importing things from React Native, and that means that using React Native tools, we are allowed to compile this code, or maybe not compile, but to run this code on mobile devices. And yes, it is a standalone, fully fledged mobile application, which is cross-platform, which is possible to run on iOS and Android. And yes, it's everything I have to do. Let you see on the result. Maybe it's not very great application, but yes, it works. And everything I have to do was this few line of codes. And it was exciting for me in React Native. And when I was starting development in React Native, I was overwhelmed how easy it could be done. So React Native is a place when JavaScript meets Android and iOS. And React Native is a kind of great love story of front-end developers and mobile applications. And now I try to convince you why you maybe consider use React Native in your next application or whatever. So the first great feature of React Native is shared business logic. It means that we can write some logic once, our business logic, and then we could reuse it on each platform. Well, let you imagine that you have some complex business logic related to whatever, but now you have websites, you have application on iOS, you have application on Android, and that if you wish to change something, if you wish to build some new feature, you have to do it on a free platform. You have to synchronize code between three platforms, synchronize three code bases, which are usually doing barely the same things. And it's very difficult. It's not easy to maintain, and React Native is answer, because React Native allows us to make one code base in JavaScript, which could be reused on each platform. And that allows us for making application very quickly. Every of us sometimes meets clients and their requirements to make things faster and faster, but we don't want to lose our code quality in order to make things urgently. And React Native is also answer for this need. Using React Native, we could optimize our time for rewriting business logic, because introducing new features, refactoring, and changes do not require changes in more than one JavaScript code base. Well, I have found this quote. Maybe if you are familiar with Python, you have seen it before, because it refers to Django framework. And I find it very nice and handy explanation for what React Native is as well. So React Native is a framework for perfectionists with deadlines. And let me come back for a while to beginning with React Native and when I started, I was extremely overwhelmed how wide and helpful community is. For me, as a former Java Android developer, it was unbelievable that hardly every answer for my doubts has been already done on Stack Overflow or whatever. It was unbelievable how many open source projects or JavaScript libraries are available on GitHub or NPM, and I was extremely surprised by it, and I didn't experience it previously. So it's another great thing of React Native. And finally, let me clarify that JavaScript is for me, it's very good and handy, but it has some limitation. I will cover it later. And when we meet this limitation, it does not mean that, oh, React Native was a mistake, now we have to drop everything and write it natively from scratch. No, because when we meet the JavaScript limitation, we could handle it by so-called native modules. Native code means code written in Java or in Objective-C or Kotlin or Swift, whatever. And this code is also reachable from React Native because React Native exposes connection via so-called bridge. Yes, it's a bridge. It's a bridge which connects native words, I mean Java or Objective-C word with our JavaScript word. And in general, React Native is one big native module which exposes some API to communicate with JavaScript. Maybe it's a little bit advanced feature of React Native, but if you are afraid of moving to React Native, you are consider React Native and then you think, oh, what if JavaScript is not enough? Do not be afraid. You can still run your native code and makes your application partially native, partially React Native. And how easy is it? It's like that, you know. For example, if you wish to make something which is very fast, and the JavaScript is not enough, and we have to optimize it so much that we have to make it native code, it's as simple like that. We can make some native modules and then attach it to Vue, and everything is fine. So now let me say something about limitation of React Native. So it's all about performance. It's performance of JavaScript and this bridge I mentioned before. So JavaScript is still a single thread language with event loop. So we have no access to threads like in Java or Objective-C, and then we could not achieve a very great performance. Yes, we have to be conscious that it is still JavaScript, that writing in React Native does not mean that our code is being translated to native languages. It's only being interpreted by so-called JavaScript interpreter. And so in the runtime, it's still this JavaScript. And of course, it's fairly enough for most business logic, but it's not a very good idea to make very CPU-consuming operation in JavaScript thread. And one of these CPU-consuming operations are animations. And for example, it's not fully possible to do some very complex application in 16 frames per second only in JavaScript. So it will be part of the next part of this talk. And let me come back for a while to this bridge. And JavaScript and native could communicate via this bridge, and this bridge is kindly not very performant. So passing data via this bridge is slow, and each data has to be copied and then translated to value understandable for Java and Objective-C. For example, if you have some number, if you have some integer in JavaScript is not the same as integer in Java. So it has to be copied, and it's time-consuming a bit. And anticipating the next part of this talk, UI Manager is also part of native React module, and performing UI operations is sometimes not very smooth when we decide to use JavaScript for it. Especially, it's not a very good idea to evaluate each frame in React Native, but I will talk about it a little bit later. Now I wish to change topic for a while, or just approach to the main topic, I mean to animation in React Native from another side. Gesture ecosystem in native platform is a topic where very high user experience expectation meets quite difficult programming challenges, and these meetings sometimes appears to be difficult. I do not have really time to delve into very specific cases in native languages. I just want to show some conception present in both platforms on my favorite example. So it's pan rotate. Is it moving? Yes, it's moving. So it's pan rotate and zoom. It's logo of my company, Software Mention, which could be dragged, rotated, and zoomed simultaneously. I've done it on iOS in Swift, and let me show you the code. If you are Android developers, how many of you are iOS developers? Okay, how many of you are Android developers? How about rest? Okay, so if you are iOS developers, you won't be very surprised, but me as a former Android developers, I was extremely surprised how easily it could be achieved. Yes, it's all the code I have to do in order to make this example. It's everything I have to do in order to make it runnable. So this code is done on a very high and declarative level. Let you see, in this code, I do not really care about handling, panning, or pinching, or whatever. I just say I wish to do it, and it is being done. When I started iOS development, I was extremely surprised how easily it could be achieved. And what's more, it's also very extensible. So if I wish to make something more complex or customize my gesture interaction, I can write even my own gesture recognizer, because it's all logic related to so-called gesture recognizers. So these methods are, if you can see, are referring to some pan, pinch, and rotation gesture recognizer. And well, I don't want to really delve into this code, but it's all possible via a great tool, which is UIKit. UIKit is a great thing for iOS, and it is a reason why iOS feels so good, why all the iOS gesture ecosystem is so coherent. And now it's time for Android. It's barely the same case when it comes to look, because I made the same example. It is a logo of a bit scientific group, and when it comes to code, it's very different. Maybe now it could be interpreted, then the next things I'm going to say, as a negative words for Android platform, but it's not true. I just want to focus on some problem for slightly different point of view. When I was developing in pure Android, I was not really conscious about this issue, but now I see it in a little bit another way, from another perspective. Well, just let me show you the code. As you can see, I attach my logic, my handler, to some onTouch event, and then manage if I wish to drag or rotate via so-called mode, because I just wish to make it possible to only drag and rotate and zoom in one time, and then handle some arithmetical operation in order to make it feel natural. Because it works, it's fine, but it's not everything. I also had to add this method in order to manage spacing, I mean distance between fingers, and rotation. And particularly, I see some problems. I had to make some decision I didn't want to make and write some code I really didn't intend to write. So the first thing is manual mode management. As I said, I wish to make it possible only to drag in one time or rotate and zoom, and don't want to make this operation simultaneously. So I have to make some mode. With UIKit, it's only done by overriding one function, and it's everything I have to do. Now it's more difficult. The worst thing is hard coding. I just wish to make it natural, to make it feel natural. And I suppose that me as a developer shouldn't make a decision about this constants, because it makes possible that another developer in another application, or even in the same application, could make another decision, and then user experience in whole system or in whole application appears to be incoherent, and all this user experience is lower. And I don't know, I just don't want to make this decision about why it's 0.6, maybe 0.7, and why should I decide about it. And the last thing is that I had to make some low-level mathematical operation, and for me it's quite too low-level for this current case programming. So considering these two codes I've done, I make some characteristic of good and coherent gesture ecosystem. So firstly, it should be consistent and coherent in the whole system. I mean that that some gesture should be interpreted in the same way in every application. So as you remember the example I said before, I have to choose some values, and another developers could choose another values, and then whole coherence of gesture ecosystem is not so good. What's more, I think that gesture recognition should be managed with as high-level API as possible. I mean, it should be done very declarative, but it should be also extensible. It is the point 3. I want to make it possible to make complex, even if I want to make my gesture recognition more complex, and my high-level API doesn't cover it, I should be able to do it as well. And the last thing, that gesture negotiating, it's not enough to make it possible to handle efficiently one gesture. It's a great common case that one gesture is waiting for another, or should be handled simultaneously, and it also should be covered via some API. So maybe let me move to React Native and let you see my job. My job is developing these two libraries. I'm co-author of these libraries. It's React Native Gesture Handler and React Native Reanimated. It is a library for animations and for gestures. It is something which makes it possible to handle gestures and animate it very efficiently and declaratively, making the maybe just let me show you the example code. Of course, it's example of pan, rotate, and zoom, and then it could be, and this is how it could be achieved more or less with gesture handler reanimated library. There's 3 handlers, and they are wrapping some animated view, and they are connected to some methods. I'll show you one of these methods for a while. In fact, they are not really methods because they are not evaluated on each frame, but it only declares behavior, and which is being done by some kind of syntax. So let me show you this method. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So this is, for example, how we handle zoom. So maybe you'll be this syntax appears to be quite strange, but do not focus on it. Let me show you the result. Yes, it's the same example. It's React logo done with React Native Gesture Handler and React Native Reanimated. And so the code which handles zoom, for example, could be translated to pure JavaScript like this. But why it isn't like this? Because we could not make JavaScript. We could not make JavaScript for that reason that we could not use bridge very often. We could not perform all these animation-related operations. We could not make these animation-related operations in JavaScript thread. So the code before make it possible that the logic below is done in native thread. So this language before is purely the same. It's the same logic, but the code above is not done in JavaScript. It's done in Java and Objective-C. So the evaluation of each frame of animation are done in native threads. But maybe it's a little bit complex. Let me show you something more easier. On the left side, we could see reanimated code. I called it reanimated language. On the right side, we could see JavaScript code. Well, so reanimated code is JavaScript code, but JavaScript code is not reanimated code. And if we, with some operation, if we change the value of the for example, of A in the reanimated code, the value, I'm sorry, if you change value of, for example, of B, the value of A is also being changed, but it is not done in JavaScript. It's all this logic which connected to view, which performs some operation, is done in native code, maybe something a little bit more complex. It's also possible to make some logical operation, for example, and it is quite similar, but from the same reason, if we are using these libraries, we're using this syntax, and then all these operations are evaluated in native thread, and JavaScript thread is not busy. And now some gesture handler and reanimated connection. If you see, we have the only pinch method, which is connected to some image, and then this logic means that we could interpret this event and attach it to view. And yes, it's still done fully natively without any JavaScript evaluation. And why is it so great? Let me show you another example, this one. We could see that it must be controlled via really high level and complex API, because everything has been done in 113 lines of codes. And when I made it, I was surprised, but then I realized how powerful could be a gesture handler with reanimated. So to make it clear, I'd like to emphasize one more that for evaluation of all these things related to gesture and animation, no JavaScript is being used. JavaScript is used only for defining behaviors, and it is being sent to native thread only once, and then which is not being reused anymore. As I said, using which often is not a good idea, because which is not very performant, and the bridge is not being reused anymore as we didn't make some JavaScript operation. So to sum up it for a while, let me sum up it and point some main characteristic of gesture handler with reanimated. The first thing is declarative. I mean that we do not care about how these views are being, how my values are being attached to views, how to animate them really. We just declare we wish to do it, we connect the values, and all these layout changes are being done via these libraries. The next thing is that is native, because we are all these operations which are being, all these operations are only declared on JavaScript. We only define the behavior, but the evaluation is done on native side. And because of that, it's very performant, and we make it, and it's still done in 60 frames per second. So maybe it will be everything when it comes to main part of this talk. Now let me come back for a while to my first love, to Android. I mentioned some problem I faced while implementing things in native Android, but I didn't propose any solutions. I didn't want to just criticize, but I made some research about it and want to make some ideas which you, native Android developers, could reuse. So I see that Android, in fact, doesn't include anything which could be described as a coherent gesture ecosystem, considering my characteristic I mentioned before. So to make it even simpler, I was looking for something like UIKit for Android. And I was looking for it, and I found it. I found something like that. It is a library I found on GitHub. I was looking at it, but unfortunately, I suppose it's not very popular and it's not really maintained. So I'm afraid of using it, but it's possible, as you can see. But I want you to propose you something else. I want you to use React Native gesture handler again. You may be quite surprised at what I'm doing. How can I propose you Android developers JavaScript library? It's no consistent. There's some conflict. Well, let me clarify that I don't want you to embed JavaScript code in your native Android code. Let me remind that React Native Gesture Handler is not pure JavaScript library. It's even not. It's native library. It's native Java and Objective-C library, which expose API to React Native. When it comes to iOS, it's quite easy because it's only exposition of UIKit API to React Native. But when it comes on iOS, we have to implement all this gesture logic from scratch. So in fact, we made something like UIKit on Android. Maybe it's not just a copy, but it's being inspired by UIKit. Well, it's our repository of React Native Gesture Handler. So yes, it's open source library. It could be found on GitHub. Well, let you see that our logic related to gesture handling is separated from React Native exposition. So we could make React Native Gesture Handler without React Native. We have also made some example, Android native example, which could be found in this repository. So yes, it's possible to use this gesture handler without React Native. But frankly speaking, I'm not really into Android community. Also, no one from my company is really involved in the Android community. However, if you also face this, if you also are conscious about the problem of lack of coherent gesture ecosystem on Android, and if you are looking for some solution, maybe it's a good idea to use. Maybe I will. Maybe I encourage you to use this library in your next project. So if you like, for example, to use this library as a native library, feel free to do it. Feel free to contact with us. Feel free to collaborate with Software Mention. It will be extremely nice for us. And it will be everything I'd like to say. Thank you very much for listening. And maybe do you have some question about React Native or about gestures?
So my question will not be related to the gestures maybe, but how would you compare the React Native to another hybrid framework like Ionic? Okay,
well, I don't have large experience with Ionic. I have only compiled some project, but I don't know. I think that React Native is a little bit more supported. It has greater community, and but it's also another approach, and it's also good enough because Ionic is Angular, and if you are rather into Angular, it's just matter of your preferences. So I don't know to say that one is better or worse, but I have also some experience with Xamarin, and I don't know. I think that React Native is more easy to use. It's more easy to compile, but I don't want to make comparison between React Native and Ionic because my knowledge is not enough for it. Is there any? Yes.
You talked about the library React Native Reanimated.
Yes.
And what's the difference between this library and the module included in React Native?
Okay, so it was really it's reanimated because it's answer for animated limitation, because animated is a library in the React Native core, and I consider there was lack for some operation, for example for logical operation, because it's not possible to do some conditions in pure animated library. What's more, we didn't want animated was done to allow animation allows for making operation in JavaScript thread, because using native driver support was not obligatory, and Reanimated is only native library, so it's a little bit more performant because of that. Is there any more questions? Okay, so if it's everything, by a chance, if you are interested in using React Native and Expo, I'd like to invite you to the conference with workshops. That is the very, very first React Native and Expo conference in Europe. It is organized by Expo and Software Mention and will take place in Krakow in April. So thank you very much.